Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Beneath the Surface. Today we'll be discussing the Majlis of Imam Hussein alayhi salam in their religious and social context. Joining us in the show is SheikhBahmanpour. Thank you very much for joining us. Let's start off with how would we define Majlis?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Well, literally Majlis means is a place of sitting or an occasion of sitting. Now, this term has become common for gatherings, religious gatherings. We call any religious gathering a majlis, and especially, of course, the majalis of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, the gatherings to come and remember Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and to learn from, of course, his lesson, and to mourn for what the Ummah has done to the grandson of the Prophet, peace be on him. This is a majlis, and I think this culture of majlis, what we call now majlis, is something which has developed very nicely throughout history. And the majlis of Imam Hussein alayhi salam now is not only a gathering to remember Imam Hussein, it's a gathering in which we learn about the Quran, we learn about the Sunnah of the Prophet, we learn about the Hadith, manners, ethics, law. All these, of course, it's all blessings of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. I understand that sometimes we have people who do not attend any religious gathering, any majlis, except in Muharram. And this is the time, these few days of Muharram is the time that they learn about Islamic ethics, they learn about laws, they learn how to perform their salat correctly, because on other times they don't come together. So it has developed a culture around this. The Majlis of Imam Hussein has developed a culture around itself, which is to promote Islamic knowledge, to promote Islamic commitment, Islamic understanding, to promote taqwa. And I think this is a very good development in the Shia societies. Of course, these sort of majalis were not restricted to Shi'i societies or communities in the past. And even nowadays, some Sunni communities do commemorate Imam Hussein alayhi salam, but more in the past, the Sunni communities actually started huge gatherings of mourning and commemorating Imam Hussein alayhi salam. The first book of that they used to read in majalis, was Rawzatul Shuhada, and Rawzatul Shuhada was written by a Sunni scholar, and it was called Rawzat. And this is why, for example, in Iran we call these majalis Rawza. Why we call it Rawza? Rawza, of course, means garden. It doesn't mean garden, because in those majalis, the book Rawzatul Shuhada was read. It was like a maqtal. It was like a maqtal. And because of that, the majlis was called Rawza. But the initiation of this was in Khurasan, in Sunni gatherings, huge Sunni gatherings where we had there. And then, of course, at the time of Ali Buya and other Shi'i dynasties, we had in Baghdad, in other places, we had in Egypt, for example, at the time of Fatimids. So the majalis have actually developed nicely. Then, of course, in the course of history, certain additions have been added to them, which may somehow defy the whole idea of these majalis. Like, for example, injuring oneself, doing things which are not rationally understandable. These are, of course, the new developments in majalis, which we really have to ponder about it and to see what is the remedy for it.
Inshallah, they would find remedies for it. In the Quran, in the Holy Quran, there's a verse which speaks about majalis. Can you describe that for us?
Yeah, we have in Surah Mujadala, يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا قيل لكم تفسحوا في المجالس فافسحوا يفسح الله لكم وإذا قيل لكم انشزوا فانشزوا يرفع الله الذين آمنوا منكم والذين أوتوا العلم درجات. Oh, who you believe, when it's told to you to make space in majalis, make space. And when it's told to you stand and go and leave the place for others, leave the place for others, and Allah will raise you who are faithful and raise those who are knowledgeable above others. Now, this is of course about the majalis of the Prophet, peace be on him. And some prominent people with spiritual knowledge, for example, Prophet wanted to make them sit in certain places and ask others to leave a space for them. However, we can actually learn a lesson from this, of course, verse of the Quran for our own majalis. And that is, these majalis are for the benefits of everyone. And I would actually like to encourage our Sunni brothers as well to come to these majalis of Imam Hussein. Usually there are many rumors going around about these majalis in Sunni circles, that they come, they worship their imams, for example, they do shirk in these majalis, or they talk about the dead people. I advise them to come and see the ambience. Of course, if we do not go to those extreme majalis which do irrational things, they see the ambience. It's all about God. It's all about Quran. It's all about sacrifice for the sake of God. It's all about taqwa. And this is what Imam Hussein is about, actually. Imam Hussein is about all of these things. Imam Hussein was killed to protect the Quran, to protect Islam. Now, when we want to invite people to come our majalis, to invite those who do not usually come to our majalis, we want to invite them to come to our majalis. When we want Muslim converts to come to our majalis, now we have to be very careful in terms of our manners, how we accommodate them, how we respect them, how we open space for them, give them room. Or sometimes, for example, we enter a majlis and we just sit by the door, and there's plenty of space in front that people cannot pass because we are sitting at the back. So we have to keep this. Or we bring with us lots of belongings, putting here and there. People have no space to sit. So all these could be related to this verse in one way or another.
How can we encourage the Sunni brothers and sisters to join us?
It's very difficult. There is a sort of barrier of mistrust which is created between Sunnis and Shias. And I think the best thing we do is to show good following of A'imma alayhimu salam. The A'imma alayhimu salam told us, "Kunu lana zaynan wa la takunu alayna shay'an." Be an adornment for us, not a shame for us. And unfortunately, many of us behave in a way that we become shame for A'imma rather than becoming a point for their honor. One thing is that when we deal with our Sunni Muslim brothers and sisters, we have to bear in mind that if they are Sunnis, it's because they are born in Sunni families. And if you are Shias, it's because you are born in Shia family. The only way that we can interact with each other is to exchange what we have learned in our families, what we have learned in our culture. We should not see each other as enemies. We are part of one ummah. The Prophet, of course, when he talks about ummah, he talks about the totality of the ummah. He talks about Shia, Sunni, everyone together as his ummah, with all our differences. I mean, in Sunni theology, we have Ash'arites and Mu'tazilites. They are far apart from each other, but they are part of this ummah as well. We have different schools of fiqh. They're all part of this ummah as well. We have to bear in mind we are not enemies with each other. And we have to be honest with each other. What I believe, I tell you. What you believe, you tell me. And then we try to analyze, we try to digest, we try to choose the rational argument, provided we do not mistrust each other. One thing which is usually mentioned by Sunni scholars, unfortunately, to their followers, is that you never can trust the Shia because they are always doing taqiyya. Well, it means that they don't know what's the meaning of taqiyya. They don't know why Shias, for example, they used to do taqiyya in all times, because their lives were in danger. If I would have said to someone that I follow Ali, they would have instantly killed me. So they asked me about Ali, I kept quiet. Oh, this is taqiyya. But when I'm now talking to people in a free environment, why should I do taqiyya? Why should I think that I shouldn't be honest about my faith, about my belief? So unfortunately, I've heard many Sunni speakers who go on the pulpit without any responsibility, without any sense of honesty. They just accuse others. That, for example, you never can discuss with the Shia because you never can trust what they say because they're always doing taqiyya. Well, if this is the case, that barrier of mistrust would be thicker and thicker and thicker. So, as I said, the only way is that we do not see each other as enemies, and we try to exchange our ideas. And we learn from each other. It doesn't matter. We as Shias believe that we are following the right path. They believe that they are following the right path. Now, what's wrong if we share this right path with each other, and we either convince each other, or if we do not convince, there's no problem at all. We are still friends, brothers, sisters. We can go to each other's majalis. We have people with very far apart philosophical views, for example, but they are friends. They go to each other's parties, they meet each other. So I think that is the best way. If we want Sunni brothers come to our majalis, we should not insult their views. We should not insult what is sacred for them. We cannot expect, for example, a Sunni person coming to a majlis, sit there and listen. I am actually desecrating what they believe to be holy. It's not possible. So we have to be careful about these things, and it is only in this way that we can invite others to come.
There are many people, many scholars from both sects who believe that Yazid was an evil man and he was an oppressor, and he doesn't represent Islam at all. Why is it then that the Imam Hussein alayhi salam isn't mentioned as much for the Sunni sect?
As I said, they see this as a very dark moment in the history of Islam. They don't like to talk about it. And they do not probably emphasize on the importance of this incident. They just see that, okay, it was just a one-off incident where Yazid killed the grandson of the Prophet. They curse him. Many Sunni scholars curse Yazid, of course. I remember I was reading this Tarikh al-Khulafa of Suyuti. Suyuti is a very prominent Sunni scholar, of course, of the 10th century, Islamic century. And in his Tarikh al-Khulafa, when he mentions about the Tarikh, the history of Yazid, he says that, and there's an incident between him and Hussein ibn Ali in Karbala, that my heart cannot bear to mention it. So I forego it, I do not mention it here. May God curse Yazid, may God curse Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, may God curse Umar ibn Sa'd. Something in this line, I may not of course quote quite accurately, but this is what he says. So they don't probably realize the importance of this moment in the history of Islam. That's why they don't mention it. Otherwise, you cannot find a Sunni scholar who takes side with Yazid or criticize Imam Hussein alayhi salam for his righteousness. We have had scholars like Ibn Khaldun who say Hussein alayhi salam made a mistake by opposing Yazid, because Yazid had the power and Hussein didn't have the power. But he didn't say Hussein was not righteous and Yazid was righteous. He doesn't say that. He just says politically it was not right. Now, of course, Ibn Khaldun, we can criticize him that he did not realize the equation of the movement of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. He was not after political power. If he was after political power, yes, it's right. It was not the right time, it was not the correct time to go against Yazid, because he says the whole Asabiyya of Quraysh was with Yazid and not with Hussein. However, he never says Hussein was not right, was not righteous, and Yazid was right and righteous. Now, recently, of course, in some Wahhabi circles, we see that they are trying to promote Yazid. This is an evil, evil development in the world of Islam. It's going back to the Umayyad mood. And sometimes when they talk about as-Salaf, they actually are meaning to go back to the Umayyad sort of attitudes, which was an attitude against the Prophet, attitude against the Ahlul Bayt of the Prophet. And of course, this is something which I'm sure the whole Muslim Ummah would reject and would soon disappear, because this is a sort of evil development which would, of course, fade away soon, inshallah.
Inshallah, it doesn't develop, because there are many scholars that actually state that if it wasn't for Imam Hussein alayhi salam, then we wouldn't have the Shia madhab and we wouldn't even have the Sunni madhab.
Absolutely.
So if he wasn't actually to go out and fight in Karbala, for justice, then
absolutely. I mean, if Hussein alayhi salam had endorsed Yazid and had legitimized his rule by giving pledge to him, I don't think anything of Islam would have remained up till now. I mean, people realized after Imam Hussein, we had lots of repentance, we had lots of uprisings, we had lots of reflections after Hussein. So what happened? What did go wrong? Why this happened? And we know that scholars in the Sunni world afterwards, they all the time mentioned Hussein alayhi salam. They mentioned his sacrifice. So all these are, of course, things that could not be ignored.
Inshallah, they're not ignored. But with the whole aspect of Imam Hussein alayhi salam and justice, and of course standing up against oppression, how can we use that message today?
Well, justice is a universal value, of course, and that means every human being is created in a way that they would respect justice. They may not practice justice, but they would respect justice. And they try to justify their acts based on justice, even though they do not. I mean, just look at Israeli propaganda, you see. They know what they are doing, they know they're killing, but they try to show that it's just, that we are defending ourselves. The very fact they say we are defending ourselves is a manifestation of human understanding inside that justice is good. So if I defend myself is just, if I'm killing is unjust. So they try to justify what they do with what all human souls accept and justice. So if justice is a universal value, Imam Hussein can be a hero of justice, can be a hero of human race, because he stood for justice. And he sacrificed himself for justice. The whole point is that how do we define justice? Of course, one very important aspect of justice is not to forget the right of our Creator. Now, in the modern world, we are forgetting this. We talk about justice, but we talk only about justice among ourselves. We don't talk about justice between me and my Creator. I think that my Creator should give me everything, and I have the right to do whatever I want. Is this justice?
No,
shouldn't I think about it? Ya bunayya, in the Quran, Luqman says to his son, Ya bunayya, la tushrik billah, inna shirka la dhulmun azim. Dhulm is injustice. It's against justice, dhulm. And adl are opposite of each other, isn't it? So, oh my son, do not associate any partner to God, because this is great injustice. Now, when we talk about injustice in this field, it means that we are doing something wrong between us and our God. And I think in our modern society, we have lots of it. We forget our Creator. We think that even if there is a Creator, of course, many people do not believe even in the Creator. Even if it's the Creator, it's His duty to give, and it's my right to do whatever I want to do. Now, look at the human rights, the Declaration of Human Rights, that we are somehow forced by secular society to abide by. You see, it's just about rights, not duties. A human being has right to do whatever he pleases to do. What an injustice is this? Should we not abide ourselves by a law from God? Should we not follow something which our Creator wants us to follow? This is a great injustice. So this is one aspect of justice. The other aspect of justice is justice among ourselves, of course. And that justice is not available, again, in international arena, is not available. You may see, for example, in industrial advanced societies, they have been able to somehow establish some sort of justice in their societies because they're wealthy, because they have actually found the infrastructure. They have been able to build the infrastructure for themselves in their societies. But to what price? To the price of empowering, giving poverty to other societies, taking the wealth of other societies and bringing it to their societies and colonizing them and making it their own and trying to create a just society. Do we see justice in international relations? No. Every nation is after their own self-interest, national interest. And when the politicians talk about national interest, it seems that other people's national interest is absolutely nothing for them. They can do whatever they want. They can attack any country. They can colonize. They can overpower any other people because of their national interest. This is injustice. Now, this is in the social realm. Now, about our own lives, ourselves. Do we do justice to ourselves? No, we don't. We have physical needs. We have spiritual needs. We have body. We have soul. We forget our soul. We forget our spiritual life. And we only attend to our physical life, to our physical body. We want only physical pleasures. Are we doing justice to ourselves? No, we are not doing. So you see, any area we think we are doing injustice. وَمَا ظَلَمُونَا. And God says, they did not do injustice to us. وَلَكِنْ كَانُوا أَنفُسَهُمْ يَظْلِمُونَ. They were doing injustice to themselves. We are doing injustice to ourselves. And if we want to learn from Imam Hussein justice, we have to look into his life in every aspect, not only in Karbala. Imam Hussein should not be summarized in Karbala. Imam Hussein has a long history. Imam Hussein lived about 57, 58 years of life. Ashura and Karbala was only one day. And the whole movement was only a couple of months. So what about the other years of life of Imam Hussein? We have to go and learn from there. What about when he were standing in worship? Why shouldn't we look into our Arafah of Imam Hussein, seeing how he did justice between him and God? I think one of the most important, one of the most beautiful aspects of Dua Arafah is the way when Imam Hussein alayhi salam defines his relationship with his Creator. And he does justice there, that all good is from you, all evil is from me, all benevolence is from you, all shortcoming is from me. This is justice. This is when we look at things in this way. When we come to his relation with others, we look at the story that he had with Assam ibn Mustala al-Shami, his forgiveness, his forbearance. I mean, this is his justice in life. And I think we have to look at the totality of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, rather than just in Karbala.
Sadly, now my question is going to be about Ashura, which, of course, Imam Hussein alayhi salam, his life before that event was amazing, as you mentioned, and Dua Arafah is the most touching and most powerful dua around. But when we come to the Majalis, and in the Majalis, when we hear about his sacrifice and how he witnessed his brothers and his nephews and his sons being killed in front of him, what type of power is that? Because when we're to hear that a relative, a far relative, is to pass away, or when we just hear, you know, any soldier is to die as a shaheed, you feel that pain. How did Imam Hussein alayhi salam have that power and that strength to stay strong in that situation?
Well, I would say it's power of love. You know, the difference between us and Muqarrabun, those who are close to God, is that we, the believers, ordinary believers, we worship God based on our faith, based on faith which is in our hearts. But Muqarrabun worship God based on love. And love is selflessness. faith is, of course, I have faith, but I say, God, give me this, give me that. If you don't give me this, for example, I become sad, I'm unhappy. Love is when you are absolutely absorbed and you don't want anything. What you want is just to be close. This is what you want. As we have in the story of Ya'qub alayhi salam, in the story of Shu'aib alayhi salam, that he cried so much that he went blind. Allah gave back his vision, and again he cried so much in his prayer, in his salatul layl, and he went blind again. And for the third time, Allah said, Shu'aib, what do you want? Tell me. You are crying so much before. What do you want? He said, I just want this. I just want this closeness. I just want to be close. Just want to talk to you. It's the power of love. And we have in Maqtal, in the history, that's the recorder of the Umar ibn Sa'd's army, the one who actually, the chronicler of the Umar ibn Sa'd's army, who was chronicling the whole incident. He says that it was amazing that we saw the more Imam Hussein lost, the more sacrifice he offered, more energized he became. And this is because, of course, he had that. It was that power of love which was moving him. And of course, we would expect this from someone like Imam Hussein, someone who's close to God, someone who, of course, he's a human being and he is affected by all these things. When Prophet's son Ibrahim passed away, he was crying, and people were amazed why Prophet should cry. He knows this was taken by God or what. And Prophet said, what do you think? I'm a human being. Of course, I'm quite satisfied with what God has done. I'm happy with, I'm content, rather, with God's decree. But I'm a human being. I have feelings. I cry for my child. Imam Hussein cried for Ali Akbar. Imam Hussein cried for Ali Asghar. But it didn't mean that he wavered. No, his love was absolute. And this love was something which energized Imam Hussein on that day.
That's amazing. And when it comes to Salah as well, because he stopped the battle just to pray Salah, how was he able to do that? Because that's just amazing.
That is love, you see. He was doing all that for Salat. He was doing all that to keep Salat alive for human beings. He was doing all that for the sake of God. And of course, he is not going to sacrifice Salat for anything. Like, he was not after power to say, okay, I sacrifice Salat for just winning this victory. No, of course, his victory was performing Salat on the noon of Ashura. That was his victory, actually.
But how did the message continue? As, you know, everyone was martyred on the plains of Karbala. How is the message still alive today, and we all aspire to follow Imam Hussein alayhi salam and his companions?
You see, it's amazing how the details of this story has remained alive, despite all the efforts of Banu Umayyah, despite all the efforts of Banu Abbas. You know, Mutawakkil of Banu Abbas, he actually destroyed the shrine of Imam Hussein, flooded it with water so that no one could even find the place. But you see, the place is there. We know every place, what happened exactly. We know the details of the story. It's amazing. It's miraculous, actually. It's something that God wants to keep alive. And when God wants to keep something alive, it is alive. You know, at the time of Banu Abbas, and this was the time of Banu Umayyah, of course, Banu Umayyah, they were very strict. But in the time of Banu Abbas, when they wanted to give authority to someone, to a scholar, to some prominent people, if they were in doubt, they asked his view about Ali. If he was inclined to Ali, they didn't give him office. They didn't give him any authority. And if he said bad about Ali, or he said, no, I don't have anything to do with Ali, then they said, okay, he's from us. Okay. Now, this question was put to Shafi'i, Imam al-Shafi'i. That's, what's your view about Ali? Of course, this question doesn't come just out of blue. It was for a reason. He was asked, what's your view about Ali? And he said, what should I say about a person whose enemies try to hide his merits out of animosity, whose friends try to hide his merits out of fear, and now you see his merits have filled the whole world of Ali. I mean, it's amazing. For 60 years, Ali was being cursed and sweared at on the pulpits in every Friday gathering. And then you suddenly see Ali is at top of every other companion, and everyone talks about merits of Ali alayhi salam. This is miracle. Karbala is the same thing as well. It's never going to die.
Inshallah it doesn't, because just hearing Imam Ali alayhi salam was cursed before, that's just painful, you know, because of the amazing things he brought to us and actually taught us. But when we come to Zainab alayhi salam, as a female and as a sister, because, you know, being a sister is even, it's harder in the sense that your brothers and your nieces and nephews also went. What was her standpoint when she was in Karbala?
You know, Karbala was incomplete without Zainab, of course. We all know that. Zainab actually brought the message out. If it was not for Zainab, the message was just somehow contained there. They wanted, as much as they could, they wanted just to keep the incidents there and then, and not to spread. But Zainab was the one who spread it. Zainab was the messenger of Hussein alayhi salam. And that's why when Abdullah ibn Abbas asked Imam Hussein alayhi salam, that's, why are you taking your children with you? Why are you taking your women? Because Hussein said, I am not going for power, and I know what is awaiting me. I mean, it didn't need knowledge of ghaib or unseen. Everyone who had lived in Kufa, and Imam Hussein had lived in Kufa enough, knew what was waiting for Imam Hussein. So he said, if you know what is the end of this tragedy, why are you taking your women folk with you? And then he said, God likes to see them as captives. Now, of course, this has a very superficial meaning that, okay, this is my destiny, my women folk should be captive, we should be killed. No. The meaning is that they have to be captives. They have to go and take the message out. First to Kufa, then to Syria, then to Medina. And this is what Zainab did perfectly.
MashaAllah, and inshallah we all keep on that path and follow the path of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad. Thank you very much for joining us on the show, and thank you very much for watching Beneath the Surface. See you next time.